All right. So as simple as that, we are live. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Um, Raullen Chai, the co-founder, CEO, co-founder, you like, of IoTeX. Thanks for jumping on today. I'm excited to dive into this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Can you give me just to set the table, set the conversation, just a little bit of background on yourself and what you're building, what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. About myself, I got in Bitcoin very early. That's when I was doing my PhD in U Waterloo, focused on cryptography. So that's where actually Bitcoin gets started in 2009, 2008-ish. Um, yeah, so basically my research is about cryptography, and me and my advisor, so we have done like quite a few things, like design new ciphers, encryption algorithms, and to crack some of the encryption algorithm. And some of our work has been standardized by NIST, right? So that's a kind of standardization for lots of US systems. After graduation, basically I joined Google, stayed there for 5 years, leading the team, building lots of security, privacy, relevant systems. For example, one of the system actually we built for Google Cloud still earns like Google $10 million every year. So it has been a very good experience over there. And then after that, I joined Uber, leading a team, basically doing lots of security, cryptography stuff. So every time when you're hailing a car, you use a Uber app to log in. So that's basically my team, my system actually behind the thing. Stay there for a little bit more than 1 year, and it feels like it's time, to like dedicate myself into the crypto revolution, right, or movement. So that's why I started IoTeX with two other co-founders back in 2017, and we have done a big round of fundraising in 2018. So that's where we start to expand the team to roughly 40-ish people right now. So we have most of the team members here in the Silicon Valley. So they are from like the top notch engineers, research scientists, from those Google, Facebook, Uber. And we do have like an overseas team, which kind of spread out, some in Europe, some in Asia, some in other countries as well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
IoTeX, yeah,
Yeah. I'm curious. What was well, first, I mean, congrats on all the progress. Having worked at
uh-huh.
Google and been in cryptography early on was a good choice. I'm sure you probably had no idea back then that cryptography would be such a highly valued skill set and profession going into a world
Yeah.
of cryptocurrency. What was your pitch? You're sitting there at Uber and you think, okay, you want to get more into crypto. What did you initially conceive there? Like how what was the origin story of how you came up with this concept?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I'll start with the problem I see so far, right? I think a lot of people actually kind of feel like this. 99% of devices are actually data as well are actually controlled by this one person, like a centralized entity, right? So they are like a Tesla, even Google or like Amazon. So they own the data, they own the device, they knows about us, they even knows us better than ourselves. So this is kind of so this surveillance, privacy, security, those things become the real threat to people actually. So that's one. And another one is like a stagnation of innovation because especially in the IoT and the device space, uh, big companies they actually dominate like one vertical. Like a Tesla, they has probably all the car. iPhone has Apple has all the iPhone, right? So there like for innovators and the creators, there's no much presence. There's no much they can do. Even they have a great idea, they have great talents, great skills. There's no much we can do. So that's why we're kind of seeing those big companies keep growing while like innovation is still like stagnated. That's why like we want to change the paradigm. Of course, I think lots of crypto projects like Ethereum and Bitcoin actually change this paradigm in the financial space, right? So in terms of DeFi, and we want to change this paradigm in the machine space, in the device space. So that's why like we started IoTeX back in
Mm.
2017.
So, so basically, you're saying that there are certain companies that are growing, like Apple and Tesla, and they're
Mhm.
innovating. But generally, your belief is that there's a stagnation across the industries of like cars, for example, and Tesla. Um, by analogy, do you see that true in the device world, in the connected device world, where there's a
Yeah.
couple companies who are innovating, but overall there's
Mhm.
stagnation? Is that
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. When I talk with like lots of IoT hackers, IoT developers, that's definitely the case. So for example, it would be extremely hard if you want to hook up your Tesla car with a home camera, with smart
Mm.
meter, with phone, with this and that. And even though you can do that, it's still like a POC type of thing, right? So those innovators, developers, they have no way to push this one into production, unlike DeFi. For example, you have a great idea to design stablecoin today, then probably you can launch a contract tomorrow and you can, have a front end. By end of this week, you can have like your stablecoin serving people around the world. So that's type of like a piece of innovation. So I want and we want in the device space as well.
Ah, I get it. I get it.
Mhm.
So how do you go about that? Like, what are the core pieces of the project that you had to spend a lot of time building out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, IoTeX under the very ground is actually like a public blockchain. So we built from scratch in from 2017 to 2019, which has been launched for almost 2 years, two and a half years, I would say, serving 17 million transactions running by 100 delegates worldwide. So itself is a very successful public and high performance blockchain out there, fully open source, fully like built from scratch, not just a clone of Ethereum code. And on top of this one, we are actually doing some layer two protocols to connecting blockchain with devices. For example, we will have something called IoTeX 2.0. It's like a layer two protocol running on top of IoTeX blockchain, probably coming out later this year. So we are doing some internal design and discussions around this layer two, like a machine layer protocol. But this protocol is actually already serving like a real machines in the real world. We work with two partners. Basically, we do devices. So one type of device is like a smart home kind of privacy oriented smart home camera. So they use this true stream protocol actually to implement the idea when you own your private key, you own your Bitcoin. When you own your private key, you own all the home camera data you have. So this one has been like a really successful one, winning like a CES award, selling 7,000 each into like US families. So this has been like a very successful example, like machines living on IoTeX.
Mm. So does the organization have to convince device makers to integrate into the protocol, or how do they touch each other? Like, how do the devices connecting with IoTeX?
Yeah, we're taking like a strategy, like a lead by example, right? So we
Mm.
are doing Ucam, and another one's Pebble, which we can probably talk about later, is because we want to set good examples about how the world should be looking like, how the innovations in this space should be looking like. And after that, so we're going to like a fully open source, like the TrueStream, like a layer two protocol, and lots of tools we use, to help with manufacturers, hardware hackers, device owners to bring their device onto the IoTeX world.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Is it difficult? I mean, what's that been like? Do they
Uh,
get it right away?
yeah. So we're talking with like a few developers. I think they're good. They're good. We just like wraps everything into a simple SDK so they
Mm.
can install on their devices, right? For example, some developers they want to bring their Raspberry Pi, Arduino,
Mm.
those very open hardware onto IoTeX. Those should be frictionless.
Yeah. And do you have a sense of the progress or traction with integrating to those devices, or just to give a sense of scale for that piece of the business?
Yeah, so this will definitely like be the next $1 trillion market, to be honest, right? So we already see like a DeFi has been growing from almost zero, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, to now I think it's 100 billion kind of
Yeah.
sector already, right? Just within like 2 to 3 years. So this will be the first wave of innovation. I definitely agree. But how do you combine like the real world data, real world device? Altogether with the blockchain with the apps, I think this will create even a 10x bigger kind of sector compared to DeFi. That's why we are working on this one.
Mm, yeah. What do you think
Yeah.
are the most? What are the what will be the most common devices? I'm picturing certainly like your
Mhm.
iPhone. Maybe. I mean, does your iPhone a device that would be integrated into this network? You certainly the lights in your house, maybe Alexa. Like what comes to mind as examples for average people
Uh-huh.
that could benefit from this?
Yeah. I think like I wish iPhone could, right? But I
Yeah,
think it's hard because it's so
lockdown.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite locked down. So first type of devices that actually come into IoTeX is like those privacy aware, or maybe they want privacy to be embedded into their use cases, like a home camera. So we're also talking with some like a smart scale.
Mm.
Lots of smart home devices. They have these traits, right? So they want to have privacy. Um, some healthcare, like a wearable devices as well,
Mm.
because people do care about their healthcare data. So that's, I think, like a big category of devices. And another category of devices is actually like a Raspberry Pi, Arduino, those type of devices. So almost everybody has it, right? For example, I'm sure you have Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
I have 3 or 4. Those things are not, those things are not actually used on a daily use on a daily basis. So if we can hook up those Raspberry Pi, onto IoTeX and serving some sort of task, it's like a labor market basically of device, right? So people
Mm.
can issue tasks to those Raspberry Pi, and they do tasks to earn some sort of token. Then the world will be looking like very different.
Mm. Mm. Are there some examples? Like, let's think. So, well, I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, you've thought about this 1,000 times
yeah,
more. But yeah, what would be like a good conceptual example of that? Like a Raspberry Pi, would
yeah.
that be a good example, or what else comes to mind?
Yeah, so Raspberry Pi, Arduino, even Pebble, I think they're all good
Hmm.
examples here. For example, like a Pebble, right? So it's an open source kind of developer oriented dev board we have. Is like a GPS plus 16 other like sensors that's collecting
Mm.
data from the real world, so you can carry down, go to anywhere.
Mm.
Um, and this one has a secure chip, so the moment the data gets collected by the device, it will be signed by the chip, so it's become tamper-proof before like a serving to the D apps. So we are seeing like a few
Mm.
innovations around Pebble. There is a game like an NFT game like a Pebble Go. Basically, for example, you have been like to the Miami conference, Bitcoin conference 2021, so you can press a button on Pebble, you prove you're there, then you're just getting an NFT from this D app, right? The more places you go, the more of this like a proof of presence you do. You're just getting
Mm.
more NFT from some sort of collection, and then you can do some DeFi yield farming, some game
Mm.
stuff. That would be
Yeah.
super interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a whole industry of loyalty apps that were pretty popular. Like they
exactly.
raised a bunch of money in 20, I want to say 2014, 2013 to 2015.
Right.
And their basic premise is that they're going to allow Belly was a big one, for instance, that comes to mind. They take an iPad, they put it behind a cash register in a restaurant or a cafe or a bar, and
Exactly.
you go in there and you scan the code, and then you get these points, that accumulate, and then eventually you get like a free coffee or something. But
Yeah.
it always seemed like it was closed. Back then there really wasn't these tools available. So, but it was such a closed network that I don't know to what degree they really took off. How
Right.
effective they are outside of their own network.
That's
Yeah,
true. So, so that's
yeah,
why we
right.
should make it open, right? So we should
Yeah,
make it
yeah,
open enough. Everybody can participate. And,
yeah.
and there's another example I can give you too. So it's also very interesting. Like we are working with Arduino team. Arduino, is like a very small sensors. That's very, very cheap. So they can be deployed to lots of places. So what they want to do is basically to have this chip, this like a small sensor, Arduino sensor, talking with IoTeX blockchain, so which constantly like transmit data back to the D app. Then those teams, they want to build some sort of like a weather derivative and a traffic derivative on top of those data. For example, right? So I can bet on the weather will be hot tomorrow or maybe next month, right? I
Mm,
can use this one to hedge some of the things I'm doing. For example, I really want to travel to somewhere, but because like the bad weather, probably I cannot.
mm,
So I will purchase this like as a hedge. Traffic derivative is another one that's very innovative. Uh, so you probably heard about like a flight insurance, right?
mm,
But we can apply the same idea to the traffic as well. If you want to
mm,
go to somewhere, you get like a traffic jam, right? So you will be like a grumpy, but you're just paid off because you bought something like to hedge the risk here. Yeah, those things are very innovative, also very crypto native.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know that for instance, the travel insurance, every time I go and I book a flight, it
Yeah,
always says, we highly recommend you get this insurance. But if you buy the insurance that's on the checkout page,
yeah,
it doesn't cover like most of the things you want it to cover. It's like
right.
unless you uh, unless like the you go to the hospital or something extreme, it doesn't. So I don't know. I always have a stigma. I feel like those are traps, and there should be better options to those. Yeah, the weather concept is interesting because the weather affects so much of the business. Do you see
Yeah.
most of the opportunity to build on top of the platform being on business, like B2B or the business sector, or more on consumer apps that people would use?
I think even I think it's more on consumer apps, to be honest.
Mm,
Um, Usually like a innovation, they will hit like consumer space first, then the business space, right? So if we look at the business, some enterprise software, they are just like a 30, probably 20, 30 years old. But if you look at all the like a consumer facing application services, so they are very up to date, to be honest. So that's why I think this, all sorts of new paradigm, new innovations here, we apply to the consumers first.
mm, mm. And are there clear like what's working the best now? Do you see on top of the protocol? Are there certain examples that are standing out as being as
Mhm.
working better than others?
Yeah, so that comes down to how we grow the IoTeX ecosystem. So
Mm,
definitely like the D apps, at least like what we were saying, like a DeFi NFT, those metaverse themed apps applications. So they are kind of sprouting on IoTeX right now.
mm,
I do think DeFi is a very necessary layer for any public blockchain, even though our focus is machine and device, but we
mm,
still need the liquidity layer, which is a DeFi layer to do lots of things. Also, those things are like a kind of virtual and easy to scale up. Yeah, so
mm.
in the past 3 4 months, so we are seeing like a 20 or even more D apps around DeFi NFT, kind of sprouting IoTeX right now. I'm sure like down the road, once it's Pebble launched, Pebble Go game launched, and there's like a also like a travel kind of loyalty, like you said, this loyalty game launched. Um, there will be more like a device-oriented applications on IoTeX very soon.
Yeah, that's really interesting. On the website, iotex.io, on the ecosystem page, you have like Ucam Pebble, which is super popular, and so
Hmm.
these are applications that are being built on top of the layer one, or I guess built on layer two. So this is you
Yeah.
built the core infrastructure, and then people build applications on top of this, which is where
Hmm.
you are now. It looks like there's about maybe 20 or so different apps on top of the protocol. Does that sound about right? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So UCAN is a very typical example, right? So we done the layer one. So we have this experimental layer two, in the past year, and we work with this like a home security camera manufacturer, and we say, oh, okay, do you guys want to use IoTeX technology, right, to manage the privacy perspective of your camera, right? So which will be like valued a lot by the customers, especially in the US. Yeah, they said, yeah, let's give it a try. So we just work together on this project, and you can use IoTech stack, and they launch their product, and which sells very well, right? So I think this is a kind of a lead by example. After you can, so there are like quite a few manufacturers coming to us, like I mentioned, like outdoor cameras, some wearable, this like a smart scale, even some toothbrush. I don't know what we can do with toothbrush, to be honest.
You never
Yeah,
know. You never know. Don't
yeah,
sell innovators
yeah,
short. You never know.
yeah. That's kind of yeah. That's a story behind UK.
Yeah. Well, I could certainly see. I mean, I don't know. We don't have to go down the toothbrush road, but there, even down the health road, when you have devices that connect to your body and they
Mhm.
monitor, heart rate, your atrial fibrillation, they're measuring all sorts of things about your body. I know that there's an interesting, I'll use the word interesting, intersection between how the payment insurance works, how the funding for it works, and the collection of that data. There's a company out there, I forget the name of them, but offer insurance, health insurance to people who run. So that they'll say if you run more than like 10 miles per week, or I forget what the number is, but there's some threshold where they say we want to be the insurance for people who are exercising, because they know if you're exercising, they have the data to say that you're more likely to be healthy, you're less likely to go to the hospital, you're less likely to cost us money. And so that's basically a way for healthier people to get cheaper insurance. And
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. I mean, it's a capitalistic approach, which is it's interesting. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's an interesting one. So it's basically a very good example of this personalization in the healthcare space, right?
yeah,
Which is a trend, I do think, right? In the future, when you do some sort of treatment, probably people will use different type of drugs or maybe method to do the treatment. The same applies here. If you running 10 miles every day, you are likely to be a very healthy person, meaning like your like a medical cost will likely to keep lowering for the next decades also. Um,
mm,
for now, I still think like the insurance industry is kind of very closed. It's just like
mm,
a big company sitting in the middle, right? So
mm-hmm.
do the matchmaking on two sides, just taking a lot of profit. But there are some decentralized insurance protocols, at least in the DeFi space, is kind of taking off. I do think there will be some like insurance, like a health insurance type of protocol, also will be seen in a decentralized way
Yeah.
in the coming year or so.
Yeah, yeah. I think the trick with the health insurance in particular is that you can't. No one wants to pay double health insurance. So if you're contributing by force to a collective, system, you have to. It's a government policy.
Mhm.
Then it removes any incentive to have another insurance on separate from that. So I think
Yeah.
part of my philosophy is that people are going to innovate and provide a better world than the government will by default. So use the government where necessary, but don't let it stretch into the services sector so that we lose innovation. Um,
Hmm.
but
That's
yeah,
a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we do have like a ecosystem project called Health Blocks. The EU is a European team. It's working on the very similar aspect, right? So they basically collect all the data from the wearables from those devices. They even have a what's that called? It's like a sleeping mat putting under your bed, right? So it monitors how you sleep over the night. Then those data, plus the wearable data, actually come going through IoTeX stack, come into their D apps. So they will allow user to mine the token because they're providing the data, and they will allow the user to decide if I want to release this sort of data, my personal data, to third party like a service, like a physicians, insurance providers. Yeah, so they have been working on
yeah,
this concept, yeah, for like a
yeah.
6 months or so.
Here's a prediction for you. This is a stretch. Ready? So the Elon Musk project Neuralink, where they
Yeah.
can connect input data to your mind. That
Oh
I,
man.
I could certainly see one day, like far in the future, where you can get paid to do computational tasks. Like picture. Picture something, solve some problem, and you're getting paid literally to do that task. You have it, it's
Uh-huh.
decentralized, it's on the blockchain. You send requests to people's minds, they do it, they fill it out,
Oh
and
man.
then
This is so crazy, right? Using human brain as a
yeah,
mining machine,
yeah.
basically.
I mean, don't we already do that really when we sit at our
We
computers
did.
and we work remote? But yeah, somehow that seems both simultaneously utopian and dystopian at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
That's a
So
good one.
I'm so curious. How does the price of the coin itself differ from the company? I mean, do you guys think about that today? Is it a focus for you internally with the team of trying to grow circulation of the token? Because they're largely two. I mean, tell me if you see this differently. But are they separate in the sense that you have what you're building as a core construct, and then you have uh, the token itself, which is being traded on the market for all sorts of reasons. You could put out press releases, you could try to bump the value of the token, but ultimately, it seems
Hmm.
like the number of applications that are being built on the platform, the amount of people that are using those applications, that's the real value that's being
That's
created,
true.
and that token is kind of the speculative price of the value.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you have a good point here. Internally, like we do not talking about like a token price too much. Because token price is basically decided by lots of factors, right? If Bitcoin goes good, or like if there's bad news, positive news, or like how much hype it has on the market. So we do not see like the price of a token as a objective valuation to the project. So what we care most about is keep building and keep growing. Keep building means we want to like produce something that's kind of valuable, like we're saying like this layer 2 protocol to orchestrate machines, some like a D apps on top of IoTeX. So we're keep building like a valuable stuffs. And on the other side, we keep growing, meaning like we want to have more developers involved. We want to have more like users involved to use our wallets or our products. And we want to have more community involved to decide how IoTeX should take the next steps here. So I think those things are values to us
Mm,
most.
mm,
Give it some time. I see like the entire crypto as an industry is growing. It will be
mm,
10x, 100x in the next few years. So if IoTeX is doing something valuable here, I have no doubt about token price. It's just
mm.
a matter of time.
Yeah, yeah. What do you view as a threat? I mean, just putting on your investor hat for a second, like what would be
Yeah.
the existential threat that, aside from a solar flare, ending all internet connection? I mean, what do you think is kind of any risk to the business?
I think the risk here is like the big trend, right? So if crypto turns out to be like total failure, definitely like we will be failing, right? So that is like more like a systematic kind of risks here. And other than that, I want to keep hiring like the top talents, not hiring. I want to keep engaging with like the top talents into the IoTeX ecosystem as we are growing. I feel like Ethereum is great, right? It's excellent. It's because they have like a top minds contributing to what they want to do all the time. IoTeX should be the same. So we want to engaging with, no matter you're like an ops person, you're a developer, you're a designer, you're technique support or writer. So we want to engage all those people into the vision of what we want to do.
Mm. Yeah, I'm curious on that point. How many people work on a salary versus contribute? I
Hmm.
guess not for free, but they're contributing open source with the idea that that's going to boost the token. I mean, how much?
Yeah.
Yeah, how much do you see like internal salary versus open source contribution?
Yeah, for internal salary, like I said, we have 40-ish people basically
Hmm.
working like a full time, day and night, 7/24,
Hmm.
myself included, right? So those are the people we have. But we have a bigger like a kind of outreach to different like dev teams. So they work with us very closely. I would say there are probably 20, 30-ish dev teams. So they are
Mm,
working with us. Each team is averagely probably 5 to 10 persons. So that's a huge, kind of
mm,
relationship and connections we have to the
mm,
industry. But I do have some thoughts about this. So we want to, turn in like this kind of leaving a salary model to like a DAO-based model actually later, right? So when the network gets more mature, so basically everybody is trying to get their share or maybe their token from the DAO based on their contribution. So we're talking with some very interesting like a DAO type of application to make it happen. Yeah, but that's
hmm.
that's coming later. Yeah,
Elaborate on that a little bit. I don't know that I
sure.
understand you. So, decentralized organization is
Yeah,
tell me, yeah, tell me how you're thinking of that. I don't.
yeah. I can give you an example, right? So we are talking with DAO. It's called the coordinate. It's
Hmm.
basically like a DAO system that's used. It's like a HR DAO, right? Human resource type of DAO.
Hmm.
So basically, every people just like every person just like working as daily basis, and there are sort of like a fixed amount of token gets allocated to this DAO, right? Probably for the next few years, 3 years, 5 years. Then by end of each cycle, that's probably end of each month, they will do like a peer kind of review. So I will give 2 points to this guy, to Alice, 3 points to Bob. For example, I have 10 points in total, right? So that means like I gave more credits to my peers who I think they are working hard, they are contributing more. Then by some sort of algorithm, by end of the day, everybody will get some sort of score, right, in a decentralized way, of course. And based on the score, which hopefully can actually imply their contribution to the entire work. So they are getting some sort of like a portion of the token as their salary per se. So that's kind of decentralized HR DAOs we're looking to.
And each person has a finite number of these. What do you call them? Not tokens,
Like a score, credits or
score.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there is the problem that you're solving there, or the problem that needs to be solved, is that there's a subjective component to contribution on work. It's not the number of lines of code contributed. It's also not just the number of
Mm-hmm.
hours that you're punched into a time clock. It's some other
Yeah.
measure, and it's subjective. And so you're using
Yeah.
other people to kind of assess that.
Yes, I think it will be hard at the very beginning. So there are lots of details to be figured out, to be honest. But I do think, excuse me, this will be the scalable way to grow the team, to grow IoTeX, right? Because we do not want to hire everybody, and also the top talents they do not want to be hired actually in the crypto space, but they want to contribute, right? So that's a very kind of very flexible way to work with a team, to work with a person, to grow IoTeX.
Mm. What Speaking from a high level, what advantage does that have over the traditional model? If you were just to say you have a few $1 million in the bank and you want to pay people to work on
Mm-hmm.
the project directly, you can use traditional Rails or crypto. Same difference, but you're paying people directly for the number of. Traditionally, it's dollars per hour or dollars per
Mm-hmm.
month or per year, but you're paying people per time. Um, where do you see like how is that? What's the problem in that structure that would lead to the
Yeah.
innovation of a DAO?
Yeah, I saw this a lot, right? So in a traditional world, this salary model actually works very well. But the problem is like people just like passively here, just getting salary, do a job. All right. In this crypto world, IoTeX included, so we want you know talents that are actually very passionate about what they're trying to build, to get participated into here. So usually talents they want to focus on the things they feel like they can contribute a lot, and they just work in day and night. They are not a job to them. It's more like a dream to them, right? To make it happen. So to engage people like that, we will need some sort of like a DAO structure here, rather
Mm.
than paid type of salary. But
Hmm.
it's just like a long way to go. We are not getting there tomorrow. It will take some time.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm more or less just interested for the concept of
Uh-huh.
where it could go. What just I like the conversations that kind of go down rabbit holes sometimes because it sparks ideas or new ways of perceiving
Yeah.
old problems. Um, yeah. What are
That's
other types of problems or solutions you think, or that just are top of mind for you? I mean, maybe they sit next to IoTeX, or they're things that you think about. Maybe companies that you're seeing now, or other projects. I mean, what's generally floating around your mind?
Yeah, so there are like two things. So we are really like we're working hard on, right? So one is this big initiative about inviting 100 projects coming to IoTeX by end
Mm.
of this year. So we have like 20-ish already. So there are 80-ish, 85-ish probably. We have to work on. So the methodology we're taking here is we either engaging with developers, so they build something like a very native from scratch, very IoTeX native. We give them a grant, a huge grant to make that happen,
Mm.
or like we just outreach to some very good products like a Curve, Avi, sushi. So we just inviting them coming to IoTeX because we're like a fast performance, a high performance EVM compatible blockchain, and have a like a 10 I would say like a 100K users already. So just coming to us so we can give you some nice traction here.
Mm.
So that's kind of things where we're looking into. Another one is more interesting. I'm thinking about this strategy. There are lots of IoT startups, device startups, right? So they are working on things that's really interesting. So IoTeX is that also like we have an arm of investment also looking into those IoT device startups, trying to get probably a small share of that company or maybe project, but having them to use IoTeX technology. So this will be a win-win for both of them and us.
Mm. Mm.
Hmm.
So would that work where if you're say you want to get to 100 apps on the ecosystem by the end of the year. Do you have
Hmm.
incentives where if somebody's building an app on IoTeX that they're
Yeah.
going to, once they release the app or they hit some milestone that they get IoTeX tokens?
Yes, so we have two type of rewards here. So one is called Halo Grant. Basically, just like apply, and the team will review and community will review. If that makes sense, we just give you the grant to get you started, right, to build.
Mm.
Another one is like IO Fund is our ecosystem fund. We haven't announced this one publicly, meaning if your project is actually getting a little bit of attractions on IoTeX network, this IO Fund will just step in to do the first round of investment to help you further grow.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's
That's awesome.
that's awesome for lots of developers.
I two questions on you. So the first one, if I'm a development team out there building on IoT, uh, how do you assess me? How does your team assess what projects are worthy of the grant?
Mm, it's mostly around the vision and the traction that can possibly get, right? So for example, if their team working on this healthcare data privacy related products, yeah, of course, if it
Hmm.
just aligns very well with our vision, then we will take a look at your like a tech design, product design, and of course team, right? Team is the most important thing to
Mm.
look into. If it all makes sense, we just do the grant.
Mm.
Yeah, it could fail.
Hmm.
It's right. It could fail, but we are willing to sponsor your dream if you want
Mm.
to make it,
It's
wish to
awesome.
make it true.
There's so
Yeah,
much opportunity out there in the world. It's like
exactly.
once you get into, I mean, you have to pick at the right industry, but crypto is
Mhm.
certainly one of them. What's a typical grant size? What would people be looking at for?
Yeah, it's different. It's just ranging from maybe 20K to 200K. It depends on the scope of your project, like the scope of the team, how big the team is, right? What you want to
Mm-hmm.
work on, what the potential impact will be. For example, I can give you a very example. So we review like a application internally. So this one is building like a kind of open source Oculus, like this, like a VR gear, right? Put on your head. So they want to do this portal to the metaverse idea on top of IoTeX for sure. So when people just putting on this one, so think about this VR kind of glass, you just put it on. So you are like immersively in the metaverse world. So we do think this is a very interesting
Ah,
project.
that's
You
super
see what I'm saying?
interesting. So what is that? Like
Yeah,
a decentralized metaverse? You're
yeah,
basically, doesn't that feel like that's the direction it has to go? Like it's just going to be, there's going to be a decentralized virtual reality that we're all in and no
yeah.
government can stop it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, this device itself will be the gate to the decentralized to the metaverse, right? You open the door, you just get into the metaverse. There will be some sort of applications, NFTs, game over there, but that's the door you have to go through.
Wow.
That Yeah. So that's a very interesting project.
What year do you think you'll sit down to work and you won't be looking at a 2D screen anymore? You'll be putting on something and you'll be in like a 3D world.
Yeah, I think it's coming. It's coming very
Yeah.
soon, right? So VR AR was a bubble probably a few years ago, but if you
Yeah.
try out the recent products from Facebook, this Oculus Quest 2 or 3, it becomes real. It
Yeah.
becomes real. Yeah,
Yeah. My bet is that Apple's big product, like their big next product is got to be VR.
yeah,
Certainly maybe the car, I don't know, but they seem like they could crush it on VR. I mean, doesn't Apple seem like the perfect company? You put on this little, it's like a little eye cover or
yeah.
something really light and easy, comfortable, and then it's like you're in a whole nother universe.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fascinating, right? Think about it. You can do some sort of mining, some NFT, some Pokemon Go. Wow, that's a whole new world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are other ideas that you have that you think are a bit contrarian or against the say mainstream crypto? It doesn't have to be just in crypto, but are there ideas
Hmm.
that you hold, opinions that you have, or things that you've seen and things that you've learned that are
Hmm.
unique perspectives? You think for people listening?
Uh, yeah. So like I do think crypto and Web 3.0 is like
Mm.
the kind of new social movement, right? Because we are so used to have these big companies to own everything. Now, I think the things will go to the other extreme, other end of the spectrum, meaning like everything will be decentralized. I'm so thankful like Ethereum and Bitcoin. So they set up the good example by having like this lot of innovation work without a centralized party sitting in the middle controlling everything. So I do think the next $1 trillion kind of opportunity is really about how you transition the real world, maybe traditional finance, IoT, those very traditional stuff from the real world onto this metaverse, crypto new world, right? So there are big opportunities here. So that's why
Mm.
we want, trying to just position ourselves into here, and help this transform to happen as soon as possible. That's the
Mm.
whole philosophy, like why we're doing IoTeX.
It's awesome. Good for you guys.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
your token IoTeX is available on exchanges for people that are interested to learn more about it or buy it or sell it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. So IoTeX has been like recently listed on Coinbase. So I think all the US investors, also they open up some pairs IoTeX to German users as well. I heard about, and UK users as well. So yeah, so there are basically people can just trade IoTeX token
Hmm.
over there. And not to mention, so IoTeX has been listed on Binance and Huobi, those two big exchanges like 2 years ago. And there are like just numberless like a kind of small exchanges also support IoTeX. I feel
How,
like sorry,
oh,
go for it.
I want to hear what you have to say. I want to ask real quick though. How was that process of getting listed on Coinbase? Was it cumbersome and difficult, or was it fairly straightforward?
I don't know. It just happens, right? It happens as a
Yeah.
surprise to me as well.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I do think the team is like a really deserved because we're building something real, something meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I feel like IoTeX is, on the way become like a universal accessible crypto assets, right? So probably
Mm.
following Ethereum and Bitcoin. So that's a really good one. That's like a team is really exciting for that. Not meaning like
Mm.
the token price goes up, but meaning like the market recognize what we're doing. So that's the
And
most exciting part.
they don't contact you first and just say, "Hey, we're going to list you." I guess they just do it, huh?
They just do it. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Huh. It's fascinating. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. But what were you saying
Yeah.
before I interrupted you?
Oh no, I was just trying to say like so IoTeX become a universal accessible assets. So this is like exciting me and the team most.
Mm,
Yeah.
awesome. And what would help you guys the most? I mean, you mentioned certainly growing apps on the marketplace and the ecosystem for app developers out there. We'll certainly promote that. And
Hmm.
and hearing about the grant and then the reinvestment opportunities has to be really exciting for developers. Are there other things that would help you guys? I mean, yeah, anything else top of mind for you?
Yeah, so we would need more education. Of course,
Mm.
I think this podcast is a very good one, basically to let more people to know about us, to know what we're doing right now. In the past 2 years, especially in the first 2 years, like the entire team is just putting their head down, just building, right, building, building, building. And now I think like the things we already have a very good foundation right now, and it's a time we just get out of the door to just let more people know to evangelize ourselves, our technology to the world, right? Then hopefully we can see lots of applications, device developers, they can have some sort of beneficial from what we are trying to build.
I love it. I love it. Last
Mhm.
question. I'm so curious. IoTeX, is that a derivative of input output technology? Where does the name come from?
Yeah, so of course IoT, Internet of Things, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
Internet of
also, of
Things.
course, you can say input output. That's fine too. Um, and EX is more like an extension or even some device data exchange. So there are lots of meanings this EX can carry. So
Mm,
that's why we use this name.
I
Yeah,
love it.
there are some funny stories about this name, because IoTeX, we have ITX in capital and
Yeah.
O and E in lowercase, right? It's very confusing to lots of people. So they
Why
complain and
is
say,
that?
oh, why? Uh, we just want to be different, right? We just want to be memorable to people. Actually, it creates lots of confusion to people. Sometimes even see the I as a L, so called as law text. That's just some fun facts about the name.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny. That's funny.
yeah.
And do you
Uh-huh.
anticipate changing it? Or are you gonna stick to the lowercase I? Oh, it's not lowercase, right? Or it's like, is it
It's a
lowercase?
bigger.
It's a big I. It
Yeah,
just
it's a
doesn't
big
have
I.
the. Yeah, it's a big I. It's
Yeah,
not low.
yeah.
Yeah, low text. I
Yeah,
like
we,
it.
we're
I like the logo too.
yeah, we're fine with the name and with the logo.
Yeah,
And
people
logo
figure it
has a
out.
lot of yeah, and also logo has some funny stories behind too, because you see our logo is like a lot of triangles putting together, right?
Yeah,
Just
what's that about?
yeah, it's like a connecting all the decentralized or maybe distributed things all together.
I dig it. Did you make that?
Yeah, our designer did that, not me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I dig it. I
Yeah.
dig it.
Uh-huh.
Well, hey man, congrats on all the all the progress you've made. It's seriously inspiring, and I hope more
Hmm.
people will start building. And I truly hope you guys hit the 100 apps on the marketplace by year end. Um, I look forward
Sure.
to seeing what kind of innovation. It sounds like you are looking forward to seeing what kind of innovation gets built on top of the protocol.
Yeah, I have too many
Yeah,
ideas, so that's my problem, right? So I have too
yeah,
many ideas. I'm talking with developers all the days, So we will definitely see something very innovative that's coming in the next quarter or so. Yeah, I'm looking
yeah.
forward to that too.
You should. Do you write publicly? Like put it out on Medium or Twitter, like writing all your ideas for? Because I bet there's a lot of people out there with the skill sets, but they just don't know what to do exactly.
That's a good point. I tweet a lot. I tweet a lot. But I love to writing. I'm very good at writing too. I just don't have got no time to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
right. Probably I should. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll push it out there if you send me something.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on today, and yeah, look forward to seeing all your progress.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Mike. A really great
Take care.
conversation. Thanks.
All
Mhm.
right.
Take
Take
care.
care, man.